You know, probably one of the best things, if you want to do figure carving, one of the best things that would teach you something.
Say hi, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin. Huh?
Hey guys, welcome to the show. Kevin's over here pounding some leather pretty good. He said there's plenty to do, so he went ahead and got started with his cloudless sky.
First thing I thought I would do is change the volume of my hearing aids.
So
I'm
that
tired
you
of
can't.
hearing this tappity tap tap tap.
He's going to turn himself
Well, I
off.
can
Isn't
hear
that handy?
So anyway,
So last Friday, Kevin sat in as we did our rawhide lampshade, and so he started tooling this lovely picture that we've got here. Did you do anything with that footage already? Anybody from last week?
well, this is
So he's going to keep doing a little bit
Pretty-
of carving, and then we'll see if we get into some coloring today.
pretty unfinished at this point. I wanted to have something sort of kind of halfway finished. You can see I'm paying a tremendous amount of attention to detail right here. And matting this sky. But
Yeah.
you got to be really careful, because if you go screwing it up, it may be difficult to. Anyway.
You guys didn't see that, but he was staring at me the whole time that he was pounding on the leather.
No, well,
What were you gonna say if you really want to do some figure carving? The best way to learn is what?
you know, one of the things that I've found out over the years is that most people, when they are going to do some kind of figure carving, they're very intimidated by that.
I am.
I get it, you know, but what is it what would you say contributed to your being successful at the type of leather work you do?
I just did it a lot and saw a lot of stuff that I didn't like and tried to make it better.
That's exactly right. You keep at it. So one of the things you can do, if you want to do something that will help your self-esteem, tool a leopard or a cheetah. The reason for that is there's absolutely very little detail that goes into the body of the leopard or the cheetah. Now, you can make as much as you want, and that's all fine and good and happy. Paint it. That's where everybody is intimidated. So when you make the spots on a leopard or a cheetah, of the universe had a template where he sprayed those things on there. He did not. And so what you do is you do the best you can, and you'll find out on a leopard most of those spots are some black with a little bit of tan in the middle. And you're going to think, as you're doing, this is terrible. But when you get done, everybody's going to look at it and say, wow, that's really good. And I just tell you, that's what'll happen.
A leopard or a cheetah?
A leopard or a cheetah. The cheetah's easier because it's nothing but black spots, but the leopard has those weird spots.
Like
Just
jelly beans?
Have a little faith. You know, this is a trick. I don't know if you can see what I did. I've got mountains tooled on here.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so you take a steep beveler. Once you've got it matted behind the mountains, you take that steep beveler, and again, you just kind of, sort of, you don't have to be very careful, actually. You go around your edges and your border, and it's probably better if you don't go down into the picture. You can if you want, but you just do the outline.
Just the top of the mountains.
Yeah, and really, you can pretty much see the difference, I would think. I mean, can you guys tell?
I can.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
can.
We're above you. There you are. Nope, down. There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can really tell a big difference.
It makes a stark.
So anyway, that's just a little bitty thing.
And you took this huge old matter,
Yeah.
this F901, and really just pushed everything down above it.
Right. And
Just went
there's
hog wild up here.
so many to do a figure carving lesson here, but you got all this blank space. That's okay. With leather carving, like what you do, Denny, and the Western floral, it's all about, the whole bottom line is putting one thing behind another and making something else look like it's in front of something. It's the same. So
Kevin carves like those 6th graders that I teach to stamp wristbands.
yeah, beveling along this line right here, which I guess you can't see because of my hand, it puts this behind this.
Yeah, it makes it look like.
Yep. And so we're going to do that.
Is that like a boulder?
You know, it can be. If you want to put a rock there, you can put some rocks wherever you want them. There. Rocks, and then
Done. There's a rock.
it's not done. You got to have a modeling tool. So you've got to get rid, for the most part, and I think I've told people this before, every square millimeter of leather in a figure carving has to be good with something to change the texture of the leather.
You don't want smooth leather anymore.
No, and it's not that you can't go back and do things, because you can where you need to. You can smooth things out, do what you got to do, by all means, and then come back and fix things. A lot of this work with a modeling tool is nothing more than experimenting. That's all it is. You don't even have to be very careful, to tell you the truth.
Mark.
I don't know about that, but that's what you got to put in there. And try to keep the halos to a minimum if you can.
What do you mean by halos?
Oh, it's like well, you can see on here where I went around with that big beveler, you've got that, you can just tell.
Kind of that burnish halo.
Yeah, and this really does a little bit to mitigate that. Now, keep in mind, what I'm doing, I'm hurrying.
Yeah.
So, in the hurrying factor, I'm just not as careful on one of the things about doing something like a lake. Is, how do I explain this? It's hard to make a lake look like a lake on leather, especially if you have shoreline.
Okay.
The lines that define the border of the lake have to be horizontal. Almost all of them. The back one is the same. And not entirely all, but to some degree. Now again, I'm just taking a steep beveler.
So we have a quick question. Can I just draw with a modeling tool, or do I need a swivel knife?
Man, you can draw with a modeling tool, and I think that's really smart,
Okay.
because you can always go back and cut something.
Right, like you could cut those mountains in once you decide that's where you're at.
Yes, but it
Okay.
is very difficult to uncut something.
You don't say.
I do say. And you'll find that as you work things with a modeling tool, things just have a tendency to blend in. I don't know how you want to call it, but it just sort of works. And I guess the more experience you gain, then you kind of have some insight as to what works and what really doesn't, but
So right before we started this video, you obviously did this last Friday. So this piece of leather had been sitting there for, 6 days before we got back to it. And you had to wet it again, and you didn't love that.
oh,
Why didn't you love that?
that would be an understatement.
He hated it.
I hated, and when you're doing things like figure carving, you have such a tremendous difference in the various areas that you're working on. Some of those things are pounded right down in there, and others are not. But when you wet a piece of leather for the second time, what happens to everything that you've worked on?
It swells up.
It swells up, yeah. So it's much like Western floral carving, but it's not as rigid in what you have to do or should do. So let's see, we've got,
So when you do your figure carving, you prefer to get it all done in one session.
well, if possible, but obviously you can't do that sometimes. I mean, I did a picture one time that was 2 feet high and 4 feet long.
You didn't get that done in one session?
No, I didn't even get it done in 2 or 3 or 4.
Well, let me ask you this, if you were doing this on your own time, the way you wanted to do it,
Yeah.
would you thoroughly case that leather? Would you saturate it?
No.
I say, what is the ideal moisture for figure carving and restructuring the surface? Because you probably can't have it too wet.
The reason, Denny, that would be the best way to do it. The reason is that I'm basically lazy.
I'm in your club.
Well, I have enough years of experience to where the moisture content is not foreign to me. I pretty much have a good feel for that, as I'm sure you do. And that's why. Now, anytime somebody makes a tree, especially a pine tree, that's intimidating on a piece of leather to try and make a pine tree. So you make this pine tree and you finally get to a point where it's okay. It's what you got. It's what you're going to have. It is what it is. It's really tough to make the bottom look like it should. So what you do is you fake it, okay? And I'm going to use a couple of different tools to fake the bottom of this tree here. Can they see that? Well,
Oops, ouch.
okay.
This tree right here.
I don't know if I can work upside down.
That's okay. I'm just showing them, and then we'll show them what it looks like later. This is figure carving, Omar. We are figure carving.
Yeah, and it's, let's see here. There's a lot of little tools that have teeth, and that's kind of what I choose.
Teethy tools.
Yeah, this is an F934, I think.
It's a veiner, right?
It's actually
Oh,
classed as a
yeah.
figure carving tool. It could be used as a veiner. You tip the dumb thing, and you run it across the bottom of that tree. And a little past. And if you want to add some dimension to it, which of course you do.
Oh yeah, there's like some little foliage popped up right
take
there.
a different one, and you can do the same thing. You might actually get up into the tree and make some little half moon patterns or something of that nature here. That looks like brush. Don't worry about
Something that's actually hiding the bottom of the tree.
Exactly. And don't worry about being too realistic, because it just is not all that important. Let's see, I think I misplaced oh, surely not. No, I know it's here, there it is. And any little halos that you create, you want to get rid of them, just do that. Just get rid of them. Now,
Nice job. Sorry.
Tried so hard.
let's see, where's my tool? One thing you can do with brush that I am a fan of, I'm going to take this little bit of brush out here a little ways. don't be afraid to turn your tools, is you can take a swivel knife and just add a couple of little pieces of grass that got a wild hair.
Crabgrass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's best if you always add more than one.
Do a couple.
Maybe a couple, yeah, 2 or 3. Now, that little bit right there is enough to hide what I've got hidden. There's a couple little things I don't necessarily like about it, but
Yeah, because when you're out in the woods, like they're not mowing the grass under the trees, so the grass is probably
Right.
going to grow up, especially into a cedar that's laying
what
on
I'm
the
gonna
ground.
do is just take this little tool, I'm gonna tip it the other way, and we're gonna put some texture here. And please don't assume that just because I'm doing this here that this is the right way, because it ain't. It's not necessarily the right way. When you make rocks, it's good to have a little dimension in there around the corners. You don't have to, but it's kind of helpful.
Makes it look like the rock's actually coming out of the ground.
It kind of does. You know, you can use a corner of a tool. You can use the butt end of a tool. You can use a pointy modeling tool. You can use a butter knife. As long as you can get it to do what you want to do, then that's the big deal.
I feel like figure carving is looking at your arsenal of tools and deciding which ones are going to make the right elements, or what combinations of ones can create the elements that you're looking for.
Yeah, and let's see here. You know, if you think about all the amazing leather crafters out there in the world today, guys like Denny and all these big name artists and all that stuff that do this amazing work, and there's a lot of them out there that have, you know, not with us anymore, Rob Barr and others. The reason they got so good is because they just did so much of it. And they decided that, you know, I'm going to use that tool over there to do this or that or the other thing. And that's what they did, and it worked.
Or they made their own tool because they didn't have one.
Yep. That is...
Denny does that a lot, and people are always like, where did you get that? And he's like, well, it was this one, and now it's not.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's learning what I can do with certain tools.
Yeah,
You know, you can do a lot of different things with one tool.
For heaven's sakes, yes. You know, like this great big old honkin' veiner. You can make a pine tree with that. Once you understand what can be done, I'll just put a few little enhancement in this pine tree, and you'll probably never see them. But that's okay, because they just add to the overall appearance of the tree.
Well, and it's like you were saying earlier, you know, a lot of it is just experiment with different
Yeah,
tools, you know.
you turn this thing over right side up, and you can use that to make your brush.
Kevin, somebody asked about the juxtaposition between figure carving and inverted leather carving.
Well, that's a good question. The inverted leather carving is just exactly that. It's when instead of pounding the leather down around your object, you pound your object down into the leather.
Okay.
And so the initial step is not difficult. If you have access to any of those old Al Stolman doodle pages, he did a series of, I think he did a state, and he did a series of animals that were all inverted. But once you get the object set down into the leather rather than the object tooled around, you still tool the object the same way that you would. It's just inside.
So the outline is just opposite.
Yeah, it's kind of like silhouette,
Yeah.
you know, silhouette thing. Let's see if I can get some. And forgive me if I get a little anal with trying to get some differentiation here, but
Well, that's what it's all about, though. Trying to make it look like something that you think it should look like.
yeah, like it ain't. Let's see. One thing I wanted to touch on was these little, there's a 916, a 918, 934, 933, and other tools that have pointy little pokes on them.
Pointy pokes.
Yeah, and they really can serve to break up the monotony of a large space, especially when you start turning them. There's just all kinds of ideas and things you can do, you know, and if you want to highlight those a little bit,
Just use the point.
yeah, just use the little tippity tip things, and don't get carried away clobbering it, because it just doesn't work as well. Again, you got a swivel knife to kind of put your little accent things in. And that looks better than it did.
Yes.
It's just doing lots of little
Well,
stuff.
it looks like you're actually seeing this lake. You're on a mountain back here looking at this lake, and you aren't seeing the fine details of each blade of grass or each piece
No,
of
and that's the
brush,
trick.
but you're seeing that there is a blade of grass and there is some brush there.
Yeah, one of the things I always appreciated about the folks in Japan that do all of that absolutely
Minuscule.
drop dead amazing stuff with their leathercraft was that they weren't born that good. You know, they had to develop those skills. Mm-hmm. And for me, what this is making something that doesn't necessarily have to have the great amount of skill, but requires the ability to make, or helps you to acquire the ability to where somebody can look at it from 5 feet away and say, oh, that's pretty nice. I mean, if somebody examines your work closely,
Don't.
I've never used one of these tools to do this, but I'm going to give it a shot here. Huh. You will see little areas of mistakes, and you're going to see them. It's just like when you stand in front of a master painting. You get up real close and you can see the brush marks and everything else. But when you stand back 6 or 7 feet, oh my goodness, that's when the wonder really, this guy was really good. It's much that way with figure carving.
Can you imagine as Da Vinci was painting the Sistine Chapel and he's up there, you know, painting. That was impressive. Nobody saw that. That was good. You know, painting those huge figures on a ceiling, for him to finally actually get to go down to the floor and off the scaffolding to see what he's done while he's painted a hand on somebody.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing, you know he had to do that.
Yeah,
He had to get down there.
probably pretty frequently.
Yep.
That's. I always think the same thing when I see Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
You know, what were those guys thinking when they were up there on this guy's nose? It was just this big spread out piece of granite. You know, does this look like a nose?
It had to be challenging.
Man.
That's all I can tell you. If you want to give the impression of distance, you need to work with an object that preferably has some repetition, because that allows you to make the foremost object bigger. And then you try your best to make the objects in back smaller. And for trees like what I'm doing here, the ones in the front are more distinct, and the ones in the back are maybe a little less distinct. And you can actually, oh gosh.
Well, at some point you see the forest,
Yeah.
and then at some point you see the tree.
That's probably a pretty good illustration, yeah. And I gotta get across here to where I'm reasonably happy with myself, or I'll be at this all day, because it's just crazy. Let's see.
You got to make a whole forest.
Well, at least give the impression that there's a forest there. Now you can do a little bit with a beveler, like a little tiny beveler.
They're the tiniest of tinies.
Yeah, this is pretty small. And what you can do, you create layers. Does that make any sense?
Like an onion? I'm just kidding.
Nah, not really so much.
How about a beet?
And you don't have to create very good ones. But again, you need to create texture more than anything. Oops. That's not something you want to hear very often.
Excuse me.
Let's see. I'll just smush that.
Oh, is that your whoops?
Yeah, I'll maybe make a nice little mountain mark. And then I want something that's a little bit more hardcore here that I can, I don't know what I can do with that. I'll just have to find out.
Everybody's starting to receive their $100 boxes. Pretty happy with them. Score. Oh, there's one left. One more box left, guys.
Really?
I was giving those to you so you could reveal the
Okay.
surprise.
I think I'm just going to leave that simply because if I don't, we're going to run out of time and never get to dye this dumb thing even next week or next Friday or whatever it is I'm supposed to do this.
This Friday.
Okay, I knew it was coming. Okay, so my intent is to use this big blank area down here. Maybe I should make a rock there or a boulder or something. That way I wouldn't have to color so much.
Hotel style key fobs. James, I don't know what that is. Send me a picture. Liz at springfieldleather.com. We'll check it out.
What's that?
A hotel style fob, like a key fob. I mean, every time I go to a hotel, I just get like a credit card style thing that I put into the door. I don't know what a hotel style key fob looks like. I'm not fancy enough for that. I go places with him.
Yeah, and I'm cheap. There's no doubt about that.
We go to Culver's for lunch, guys.
Yeah, in the French Quarter, which is located right next to Target. Okay, make a rock and it's helpful if you can maintain the right water content. That's the challenge right now is
I say I feel like
trying
you're
to-
getting a little dry.
well, there's water in it. Just not as maybe what I would like to have. I put quite a bit of water on there.
We got a pretty hefty piece of leather, though. This is.
It is really heavy. This is 10, 11 ounce.
Yeah.
I don't know who picked this for me.
I did. Well, you know, and to me,
Hey, it fit my specifications.
When,
It's Herman oak and it was a nice piece.
and it just depends on how heavy the leather is that you're working on as to how much water you want to put in it to begin with.
Yeah,
Because a real thin piece of leather is very easy to saturate all the way through.
Yep.
And a thicker piece of leather like this, you can wet it pretty good, but it's not all the way through right now. If you put that in a plastic bag the way you wet it originally, it would be wet all the way through tomorrow. It would
That's
sweat.
it. Yeah.
now this is pretty counterintuitive. Because this is a matting tool, and I'm matting over this smooth area that you ain't gonna see a place like that out in the woods or the, just ain't.
Oh, but Andy says the $100 boxes are gone. One of you all went and bought the last one.
Got it.
We should make sure there are none on retail.
Isaac's on cameras. Okay.
Don't like that one very much. Probably grabbed the wrong one out of the rack.
But Andy said, I did. Thanks. So what you were talking about this foreground and what you were going to use it for, and then you said I'm going to put a rock here, and then what
Then
else were you going to do?
Then we did, well, we did use the matting tool that had texture on it. Boy, I don't like that at all. If you don't like something, just smack it with something different.
Clip it.
I like tools that cut. These don't cut as much as they could.
We had a very few leftover stickers. We'll show those at the end. I've got a little pile over here.
Well, you know, and as far as moisture content, most people don't realize the reason you're putting the moisture in there is because it makes the leather softer.
Yeah,
So the more water you have in your leather, the softer it is. The easier it is to make an impression, but it's also easy to smush things up when it's real wet.
yeah, smushing things up is not ideal really, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. I would rather work a piece of leather for what I do a little bit on the dry side than on the wet side.
Well, especially for beveling and backgrounding.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So anyway, we're getting this little bit of foliage done here.
Thanks, James. I'll take a look at it.
Maybe I should mush it a little bit first. I'm trying to get it to a place where I'll be able to work on the coloring and be happy with what I have getting there.
What does that mean to you? What does it mean to be happy before you start coloring?
All I'm looking for right now is the overall appearance. That's just the only thing I'm looking for. If, you know, I used to, and I still do think, that if I would sit down and really take some time, that I could do a picture or Western floral carving with the best of them. I think I could.
I do too. I think you could.
That may be my ego rearing its ugly head, but I ain't gonna do that here. Because this is just, number one, people need to see, first of all, that it's not that hard. And once you approach leatherwork, there's one thing you gotta have to be able to be successful. And Denny, I know you know it, but I'm gonna give you the answer anyway. It's the right attitude.
Yep.
You just do. Number one, you're not perfect. you're not gonna do any perfect work. It just ain't gonna happen. So why not do decent work?
Yeah.
But I think having
Well-
fun with it makes a big difference. If you're doing something and you're mad at it and you're upset about how it's going and you just
Sure.
can't seem to find your joy in the work, you're not ever going to do good work
That's right.
because you're not enjoying it.
Yes.
Well, it's like you said, you aren't going to attain perfection. Keith Seidel always says, it's not going to be perfect, but I'm strive for excellence. You
Yeah.
know, that's you just do the very best you can. That's as good as it gets.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it too, really. And, you know, be aware, you can do whatever you want to do with these tools. I just remember so many times back in the day, and I'm sure you do too, Denny, when people, they would go buy a kit or a pattern from Tandy, maybe they'd buy a craft aid, and that craft aid would list 20 different tools that it took. The creator of that craft aid, he used those 20 different tools, even if he only hit one of them once.
Yep.
You know why they listed so many tools?
No.
It's because they wanted to sell tools.
Well, that's quite possible too.
I mean, I don't mean to be sarcastic, but that's the reason.
Yep.
They did that. And I would always tell people, I felt bad for, you know, Mom would come into the store with little Johnny. And by the way, can you see the difference in the foreground on the one? It's bigger. Mm-hmm. So the foreground on the back, which is on the back section there, is finer.
Right.
So you get that
further
impression.
away.
Yeah, further away. Anyway, Mom would come in with little Johnny, and little Johnny's just started his leather work, and he's happy as a clam, and doing all this neat stuff. And they buy the little Johnny picks out a pattern. I want this one, Mom. Okay. They buy the craft aid. What tools? Here, there's a list of all the tools. Little Johnny's about to ask Mom for $50 worth of tools
Yeah.
to do a wallet back. So I would always go to the tool.
You hated that, didn't you?
I hated that. Just hated it. And I would go over to the tool rack and I would say, now it says you need this veiner and this veiner and this veiner. That's what they used right there. Let me show you something.
Yep.
Just use this one. And you can use this on lots of other things as well. You don't have to buy 3 tools. Mm-hmm. And Mom was always so appreciative, just so appreciative. And that made me feel good. And little Johnny, you know, got to do his leather work.
Yeah.
And we would go through there, and a lot of those things.
Well, and he could sell a wallet when he gets done, and then maybe he could come back and buy the next tool with that if he wanted, you know, if it's going well and he wants to expand his horizons a little bit. But it's not, you don't have to have the whole arsenal just to get started.
You know, and you know, that was probably a flaw of mine in my reasoning, because I always told them, you know, if you get good enough, you can, you don't have to be terribly good, but you just got to make something that's nice. That's all. Just worry about doing something that's nice. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you screw something up, you can always dye it black. You know?
And honestly,
But when they would come in and bring their finished product, maybe it's a wallet or a card case or whatever the case, I would say, well, that's good enough to sell. You ought to sell that. You should take that home. You should sell it to your dad. Mm-hmm. He'd buy it. More than likely. So anyway, that was how I approached that. I felt that people should try and sell their leather work if they could. If they pay for their hobby, they come back and buy stuff from me.
he had a plan.
I remember when I was a kid and first started out, you know, Tandy's was the only game in town.
Yeah.
And we lived in the Denver area, and whenever I had a few bucks, I'd have my dad run me over to the Tandy store, you know, and I'd buy a kit or a pattern or a couple of new tools, you know.
Yep.
And you know, and that's how I started. And like you said, the kids would always list 112 new tools, but I only had the money for 2.
Yeah.
So that's what I would get by with, you know, what I already had in my
Your little set.
arsenal, plus the 2 new ones that I got.
Well, it's when you started making substitutions.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing to learn. And really, you know, Tandy gets a lot of credit for having started a lot of leather crafters. And just over a period of time, they, in my opinion, they kind of lost their way as regard their business approach. But, you know, I mean, that's their business and not mine. So can't say anything much about that.
Now, Kevin, when it comes to pictorial carving versus figure carving, is there a line between them? Are they semi-synonymous?
You know, pictorial is pretty much the whole picture, and figure carving can be just an item.
Okay.
If you're wanting to do a tree, just one tree, that might be a figure carving thing. If you want to do a horse, it might be a figure carving thing. If you want to put a horse with a tree behind it, you might start to call that pictorial. I don't know.
How about a portrait of someone or a specific horse or a specific tree?
You know, portraits are pretty doggone challenging. There was a time, I want to say it was back in the 80s maybe, when there was kind of a thing about doing faces of old Indian chiefs in a headdress. You remember that?
I remember that, yes.
I don't know how exactly that got started, but you know what made that some of the easiest leatherworking to do? The fact that every one of them guys was all wrinkled up.
Are you saying it's easier to
There you go, there's wrinkles
to
right
carve old people than it is to carve young people?
Yes. Now, if you want to see some just amazing portraits, well, you've seen them, Liz.
Jim Jackson?
The whole Sheridan deal.
Oh, yes, yes.
Those folks are mind-boggling.
I think it was last year, but I guess it could have been the year before. There was a lady that came in and she did 3 separate portraits of ladies in different things in the leather debut. So maybe it was the year before you went, if you didn't remember that. And she just did full, they were, I don't know, like 3 foot tall, maybe like a foot wide or something like that. And she had 3 of them.
Wow.
They were just beautiful. She had carved and then painted them. But
Yeah, there's some of those people, I mean, man, you look at their stuff and you're afraid to touch it because you think one of them's going to blink at you or something. It's
Slap
just,
you.
it's pretty amazing to say the least.
getting some extra lines in there.
Yeah, I'm just being lazy again, but
Hey, Tony.
Well, but
Four.
speaking of that, you know, people that do portraiture probably don't do what you're doing right now as well as you're doing.
well,
You know, everybody's got to kind of specialize.
that's true.
You've got to find something that you enjoy doing, something that you think you can do.
Yeah, and I have always enjoyed doing pictorial leather work. I do that. And I'm running out of water. There is no doubt about that. So when in doubt, run it off the page. But yeah, I noticed there was a guy, he was a employee of mine in Rochester, Minnesota. Hired him and his name was Crow. Don Crow. Wow, that was a long time ago. He had never done any leathercraft, but you know, he seemed to have a pretty good background for business. And we sent him home with some tools, starter kit, and a piece of leather. And guy brought back a holster. Holy crap, where did you get that? So I did that last night. Oh my gosh. That guy could carve leather overnight. Just flat out. I mean, his decorative cuts weren't the best at first, but they got really good really fast. So that was pretty cool to see somebody like that. But you know, he couldn't carve a picture. Not for nothing. He just had a mental thing there. Okay, get all my little leather marks in here and around here so that I can kind of sort of halfway go forward and make some sense of this Friday. You know, you're going to owe me big time.
Oh, you think?
Yeah.
I just sold 100 boxes for you. Does that count?
If you sell another 100, we'll just call it good.
All right, in 3 months, I'll let you know.
3 months.
Yep. We'll start working on it early.
Thank you. Let's see, whoops, wrong tool. There's the one. With these bush thingies, if you want to make a bigger bush, just go in arcs. Half circles and kind of having to hit this a little harder.
Because you got dry leather?
Yeah, but that's okay. But it's really hard to remember sometimes that you have to keep, and this is one of the most important things, is keeping that horizontal line work. Mm-hmm. That is just pretty darn important, to say the least.
Even in your mountains, as you worry those, you worry them in a horizontal, and then you put some vertical stripes in, but they're still back and forth that way.
Yeah, and even on going around these rocks like I'm doing, you know, I don't follow the exact outline of the rock. I follow pretty close, but I'm keeping the beveler kind of horizontal there as it goes around.
Yeah, you aren't doing vertical lines.
And it's kind of counterintuitive again, but it helps a lot. And don't be afraid to use multiple tools in your bush making.
Any tool can make a bush.
That is just about true. I mean, probably not anyone. I don't think you're going to use a certain Sheridan carving stamping tools to make a bush, but
You're not going to basket weave a bush.
you know, a basket weave, you can use those little pointy legs.
And just scatter them around.
Yeah.
It'll work in double time because you'll get 2 lines at once instead of just 1 line.
Yep. So anyway, this is a 976. This is probably the most versatile tool I think I've ever run into. And I use it quite a bit. This is a shameless plug. Everybody should buy one right now. Just order it.
Everybody order a tool.
Because I have 7,000 of them. And I don't want 7,000.
It's the F976, guys. F976, little Mr. Triangle with some hash marks on it.
And I am kidding. I don't expect everybody to chop it.
And if you get like 3 or 4 of them,
Yeah.
you can make different sizes by grinding off the edges.
That's really smart. Because, yeah, I forgot to bring my 902. But if you grind this tool down into 3 different sizes, boy, it does make a wonderful figure carving tool. You can use that everywhere.
See?
Pretty much, kind of, sort of. So, okay. We'll get some choppy up bush marks here and then call that kind of, sort of good. Maybe I can...
Chevy, are you saying that you're also interested in this once it's done? It should be done before Sheridan.
Oh, gosh.
We'll frame it for you.
I would be ashamed to enter this with...
I mean, you don't have to enter it, but we can just sell it to Chevy.
Oh,
He says if they buy more of your work, then that means they get more Kevin work, right? If they give you money, you'll do it more. That is his basic premise for life. Is if I make a little bit of money, I could do a little bit more. One minute Kevin be like, you don't need 20 tools. Next minute, hey, buy this and I have 20,000 of them.
yeah. Well, that's...
Please buy many.
that was flagrant
Marketing.
capitalism there, I guess.
19's all you need.
Yeah, there you go.
You can round the point, you can leave the point sharp, you can make it wider. No, you can't make it wider. You can make it narrower in several different increments.
I guess if you have a TIG welder, you can probably make it wider.
You can weld a couple together.
Yeah.
Well, Kevin, looks like I get to set you up for painting again on Friday.
Yes, you do. But I've got it to the point now where I can kind of, sort of, halfway feel good about it because it's ready, sort of, almost.
We didn't know if we were going to get to the painting today, so we got all set up for it, but that's okay.
I changed the name of the video already.
Perfect. Am I made of money? I don't know. That's just how I assume, Chevy, is that you're stacked up 20s in there. You're full of them in your boots.
Artwork is great investment.
That's what all the oligarchs think. They invest in their artwork. That's where they hide their money away. It's some art.
I thought they bought yachts.
Well, that too.
Or
It's
something.
pretty much artwork. You get the right,
You can get the right builder.
you got the right yacht, then it's artwork.
And then you can hang some art on your fancy yacht walls.
Some pictorial Kevin.
Only 20s.
I wonder what I could do with that. Huh.
Boop.
That's what you can do with that. Huh.
You could put like another broken branch over here.
I could. It's a texture tool. How about that? It's actually a tree tool, but it works okay here. You get some stuff around in here. Boy, it's amazing what some of these things do.
You're like,
Yeah,
That little stump just came to life.
well, it's better than it was. And unfortunately, I've got to get something in here. These blank areas. Something other than blank. And as you can tell, you don't have to be super attentive to detail.
I think this was about the time earlier that Kevin just looked at me for a little while hammering his top matting tool
Well,
to show me how detailed he was being.
yeah, I used to, when I did school demonstrations, part of the demonstration I did was with the kids, and I would say, now this part, you've got to be really careful. This is the only part you have to be careful. You have to make sure that when you make this grass, everything is just perfect, and it can't be wrong. You can't screw it up. They all looked at me, you know. But that was a lot of fun.
You enjoyed your teaching days, didn't you?
I did very much. I hated getting up in the morning, though.
Yeah. Having to drive to Kingdom Come to
Oh.
do your demo.
I remember driving to McDonald County.
I feel like that's far away, but I would be lying if I told you I
Well,
knew
you
where
could
it was.
throw a rock into Oklahoma and Arkansas.
Uh-huh.
It's just right there, the river, whatever that river is, you remember?
Nope.
Anyway, it's like a,
White River?
no,
River?
The Buffalo?
no.
What river did you say?
Niagara?
Elk River, I think.
Okay.
At any rate, it's a 3-hour trip.
Mm.
And that means I had to be there at 7. So I had to get up at 3:30 and
Oh, yeah,
drive
that is
forever.
gross. No, thank you.
Yeah, me either. The first demo I did was in a garage that had been converted, an old garage, a freestanding garage that was built in 1890. It still had the original benches in it. Randy Smith, if you're out there, Randy, I know that was you. He was the teacher. And they had a table saw in there, and they had these benches where kids could do something on. They had a table saw, and they had what else did they have? I think he had a planer, and I think they had a radial arm saw, and that was it. That was their shop class. And he was pretty happy to get me to come down there to do the demonstrations for him. And I was happy to go, but he said, Kevin, these people are poor. Mm-hmm. You can try to sell your starter kit here if you want, but I can tell you they're not going to buy any, because their parents, man, they're woodcutters. They live in the middle of the forest. You'll see kids coming in wearing 2 generations of clothes. And he was right. You know, you saw little kids come in wearing you saw a 12-year-old, maybe a 10-year-old come in wearing a pair of Denny's cowboy boots, stomping around. They were just poor. They were one of the best starter set customers we ever had.
Really?
Yep, because their parents wanted them to do something that maybe, just maybe, they could turn into a little bit of money later on in life, and
Yeah.
it worked.
Give them a little bit of a shot.
Yep. We did the first demonstration there, and after that first hour, we drove 45 minutes to get to Knoll, Missouri. I think I was in Southwest City first, and then we went to Knoll, and he taught 3 different schools in one day.
Wow.
Yep, that was pretty amazing. So I think I've about got this as whipped as it's going to be. I mean, it's not perfect by any means at all. And I might touch it up a little before I dye it Friday, I don't know, but I ain't going to do much. I can't believe I even got this far. This is the kind of boring part.
That is the tiniest tool ever.
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
What is it that you've been using? He's been using a F934, just the tiniest little veiner. And you've just been using like one side of it? Or you'd be using the whole thing?
No, I just used the 2 forks at the end of it.
Okay.
Where's my 916? Gotta have a 916. I know it's here. I used it.
What does it look like?
It's pointy.
Thanks.
It looks like
That
a nice
tiny little guy?
No, it's a grassy looking tool thing.
This thing?
No, that's a 366.
It is a
Here,
366.
this is-
You're a genius when it comes to tool numbers. Those things ain't ever gonna leave your head, are they?
Probably not. Anyway, I actually did a lot of leather work when I was younger. I mean, it was a fair bit.
I 100% believe you.
Well, it shows.
Yeah, you could just close your eyes and do this, I think.
Well, probably not, but that's okay.
You like to keep busy.
Well, I do.
You don't piddle around too much. Well, you piddle around in a garden and you piddle around on some leather, but you're always piddling around doing something.
Isn't that okay? That's enough.
You good?
I want to look at it first.
Okay.
Oh, gosh. I knew I shouldn't have did that.
What?
I looked.
Oh, he looked. We got to worry it some more.
Well, you know, I'm probably going to have to wet the dumb thing again, and that's going to make me aggravated. Then I'm going to look at you and say, why'd you make me do this?
That's all right. You've been blaming
Well,
me for things for like a decade,
water
so.
coming out, though.
Oh, well. It is what it is. That's what we got
That's
so
what we
far,
got.
and we will color it.
On Friday.
And that's going to be a big experiment.
I love it. It's going to be great. How about you go ahead and put some initials in there before we leave it for the evening? Look, you got a
Really?
perfect corner. Yes, sir. Don't make them sneaky small either,
Why?
because I said so. Larry said, tap, 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 and yak, yak, yak. Well-rounded entertainment.
Well, it's good enough.
Did you make it sneaky small?
It might be a little sneaky.
Is this,
Yeah.
Kevin?
What?
That doesn't count. That's grass.
Okay, let's see.
Carve it like you mean it. Put a date in there. Like you used to do.
It's hard with this big old dumb knife.
Well, that's your favorite one. It spins the best.
Did I ever show you how it's this?
Thank you. Everybody enjoyed the show today.
And well, they should have.
Well, if nothing else, we got to sit around and talk and have fun.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Nothing but some good camaraderie.
I think it's beautiful, Kevin.
Well, thank you. I'll take what I can get.
Alrighty, folks. Well, Friday we will be back, and Kevin will attempt apparently to color this wonderful little mountain
Yeah.
lake scene, and then maybe you will even do your tiny card.
Oh gosh, that thing was better than this.
It's a pretty good little tiny card. It's a shame you guys missed that. It was a good episode, but alas, we couldn't get audio to work.
Alas.
Alas. We will be doing live shopping tomorrow, so make sure you join us at 2 p.m. Central Time on Twitch and Facebook if it works for some live shopping. And Moonshine, I see your 1240. We will see you soon. Look forward to seeing you, and I have a fat stack of things for you right here. I guess for everybody, for those of you that missed out on the $100 box, or for those of you that have not gotten it yet, you can look forward or be sad that you missed out on Kevin in a coon.
Oh, jeez.
Me pointing at you, real fun. Denny smiling with his stash back in the yesteryear. We've got Tony rolling some leather, because that's what he does. A picture of him at a computer would be non-exciting. And then Rusty doing some splitting. So that was our giveaway, or our special edition part of the box. What did we call it?
Yeah, I think that, just a special edition.
Special edition. We've been trying to do this, the last box.
Yeah, that's a treat for this year.
Yeah, had a hat in it. The next box we will come up with another fun thing for the box. It's where you can find those type of stuff. So we will see you later. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye, folks.
Bye.
Adios.